and whatever I require you to have, I'll email you a copy of it. Good morning. Good morning. You know, you all have been doing a lot. With a lot of changes, a lot of requirements, and you've taken it on like a champ. So I just want you to know that you are appreciated. If no one else tells you that, I appreciate you and all the things that you do. I'm going to go over the reminders. We have a lot of new people, and we have some seasoned people that still need to hear this information. We've made a few changes, and I just want to make sure that I go over it, because sometimes I still get, I've never heard that before. Dr. French, you never told us that. And I'm like, yeah, I did, but I understand. You get a lot of information, and that's why if I require, I send those updates and reminders. Read everything. Read everything that's in there. I try to, list everything that's required of you, any current changes. I try to put that, put attachments. Just that Camille went over the electronic, the Excel timesheet with the PARs, and there were a lot of people saying, I didn't get that. That was in one of those emails. It had the forms for continuation, and it also had that form attached. But I will resend it. I'm making a list of things that I need to resend to you, and I'll resend that to everybody just to make sure that you have it. Jennifer left to go see and to get those, and hopefully there are some, and she will bring them to you, and if not, I will email it to you. I don't know how some folders got them and some did not, but hopefully we will find some extras to bring in here. We have new Edgar books, and this is the book, the new one. This is the law. You wonder why we have to do this and why we can't do this. It's in here. And we only have enough for the program director. And some directors are over 2 sites, but you will only get 1 book. And what I'm asking you to do at the end of this session with me, come up and you will sign off to receive your book. But it's only 1 book per program director. And so the name that you submitted to me as the program director that I have on all my paperwork, that's the person that will receive this. Now, if the program director for a district is not here and someone is here in his or her place, then you will sign for them. But we have enough for each program director. Also, if you received an email from me about completing your risk assessment, whether I need your signature on it or I needed some additional information, get with me today. I will be out in the lobby area, and we can get together. I can get those signatures, and we can take care of what we need to take care of to finish the risk assessment. Okay? I'm looking at all my little notes. Yes, Annette. Okay, thank you. Also, I have a lot to go over, and I want to make sure that I share all of this information with you. If you have questions as I'm going along, write down your questions, and I'll address them at the end if we have time. Okay? So let's get started. Oh, also, if you have a new site director or program director and we need to schedule a training, please get with me and I'll schedule a training for the new person, whether on-site or through Zoom. But just let me know if you need to have that training. Cognia is up, and the current information that's aligned with the checklist is in there, so you can start uploading your information into Cognia. I will be contacting you to schedule your review. Cohort 14, your grant will be ending September of 2022, and so I will be reviewing all of Cohort 14 files. And then I have two sites that are up for state monitoring. So, and I've been scheduling those reviews, and I will be getting with others to start scheduling your reviews. And it is aligned with the compliance checklist. So, whatever, if it asks for quarterly lesson plans, if I schedule your review in December, you've been in school 2 quarters, so I'll be looking for 2 samples. If I schedule your review in February, you've been in school 3 quarters. I'm looking for 3 samples. So if it says quarterly samples, based on the number of quarters that you've been in school, that's how many samples I'm looking for. But make sure whatever it asks for on this, that you upload it. And I will be getting with you to schedule and give you the time when you need to have your information uploaded. Okay, now with the checklist. I think I have someone on the front row that needs a copy. All right. Make sure you review your grant application. Know what's in your grant application. All new people, you need to know what's in that grant. Because when I do your compliance checklist, the first thing I will do is read your grant. And I look at what you have placed in your grant that you're going to do. And if in your grant, for instance, School A has it written in their grant that they will do STEM daily. I'm looking for STEM to be on the schedule daily. School B may state that they would do STEM 3 times a week. Now, I'm only looking for it to be on the schedule 3 times a week. So your documentation must be reflective of what's in your grant. So you need to know what's in your grant. That's the most important thing to start out. Read it. Every site should have a copy of the grant. If you don't have a copy of your grant at that local site, ask your program director or whoever's responsible at the district level or entering your information into eGap to give you a copy of the grant. But you need a copy of the grant at the local site. Include this review in your staff orientation, so go over the goals and objectives in your grant during your orientation. Now, the next bullet, it's about the operational manual. We're in the process of revising the operational manual and placing all the required forms in a particular area, and that link is here, but it has not been updated, so your updates will be coming from me or from Annette or Jennifer or Camille. So you'll get them in emails, okay? Make sure that you have a sign. There are grants that have been in existence 2 years and they still don't have a sign. That's a requirement That is a requirement. And you can use grant funds to have a sign, and it should be a sign big enough to be seen, not a sheet of paper size. And you can purchase 2 signs because you need one at the front of the school, but if the parents are entering in a separate area, you can have a sign in that area. But you must have a sign, that's a requirement. And it must have the 21st Century logo on it, and that current logo is that flying circle. And this is the logo that must be on everything that's related to 21st century. If you have a parent meeting, newsletters, handout, that logo and 21st century must be on that documentation. You can't have Boys and Girls of East Hollywood big, then little bitty 21st century logo down. You need to use a magnifying glass to find it. That must be the prominent thing because you're using 21st century funds, and we need to let people know that this is brought to them by 21st century. So that logo must be permanent. You can use 21st century funds to purchase t-shirts for field trips for safety, but it cannot have East Hollywood School big and then little old 21st century. Again, prominent logo must be 21st century. You can put the school name on there, but that shouldn't be the first thing we see. Okay? So again, meetings, all of that must have that logo on it. Revisions. Now, let's talk about revisions. You can make budgetary revisions, but your programmatic revisions, your goals and objectives, what were set in that original grant, you can't change that. You cannot change your goals and objectives. You can't, do you hear me? You cannot change your goals and objectives. You were awarded this grant based on those goals and objectives. This is a competitive grant process. You received the funding based on what was written, and you have to keep those goals and objectives through the life of the grant. Now, you may make some changes. Say, for instance, in your grant, you had written that ABC Yoga would be the provider of yoga classes. Now, they were in business when you originally wrote the grant. Now they're out of business. You can do a request to change the provider, but the service must be provided. So those are there are limited programmatic changes that you can make. So keep that in mind. You may have written in your grant that Scantron would be used for the assessment piece, and you want to change the assessment piece. You still have to do you still have to assess your students, but you have a rationale for changing, and you can change that. But those activities that are written in the grant, those goals, that's listed, must remain the same. I know one of the things that the goals were not measurable. And so in order for the external evaluator, you need measurable goals. But you can't change, you wrote in the grant that it would increase by 90%. And once you started, we can't accomplish that. We're going to change it to 10. You said 90. You're being held accountable for 90. But if you did not place a measurable goal in there, and you want to make it measurable, then you can put a percentage. Those are the type of things that you can change, but you can't change the program itself. And And also remember, for all your revisions, before you implement, before you enter it into in EGAP with the continuation application, you have to send that request to me. And you must have the approval back. That's to cover you. Because if you're doing something that's not allowable, and you say, well, did anyone approve this? And you can't find that email where this is approved, then that's on you, and it could be a instance where it's a chargeback to your district. So just to make sure that you are covered, send it to me. And a lot of times, to make sure that I'm covered, I send it on to Montgomery to get it approved. So make sure, and I'll send you back, and then you have your documentation. And for your changes, I will say, this is approved to enter into EGAP. You got it. You can put it in there. But and in order for this not to slow down this process, do not just send me a text message that we want to change da-da-da to da-da-da. On here, there are 3 things you have to do when you make the changes. If you look on the second page, you have to send a copy or that section of the original grant to me, send what you want to change it to, and a rationale. Because if you only just send me a statement, I will send it back. I'll cut and paste this piece right here, these 3 things, send it back to you, and ask for this information. So to ensure that, I can get back to you in a timely manner, make sure that you follow this step. Now, if you send me an email and you don't hear back from me, just send me a text message. Hey, Dr. French, I sent you an email. Don't put the message in the email, because I'll just ask you to retype it. Because if it's something that I need to forward on, I would need it in writing. So but let me know, because I may overlook something. So just send me the text message. Please do. If you don't hear back, send me a text. And then I know to go in and search to make sure I take care of whatever it is that you're needing from me. Budget revisions are required when your system receives carryover funds. These funds are added to your annual grant amount. Administrative costs and indirect costs is taken from that original grant awarded amount, and you have to stick to that percentage of that awarded grant amount. Okay? Please remember, for admin and indirect costs, you must stick to that original awarded grant amount, that percentage. So your continuation application, it's revised every 2nd and 3rd year of the grant, and it must be submitted on October 1st. I do realize there was some confusion because on that calendar, it had November 1st on there. That was one of the things that wasn't changed. We had put that on there because of the previous year and all the stuff that went on with due to COVID and changes and having to extend, because even with closeout, we had to extend some stuff, and that's why that date was on there. But it's always October 1st is the date for continuation. So, cohort 15, you will be doing a continuation at the end of this year. 14, I'll be working with you to close out this grant, because it will end September of 2022. So you will take care of closeout, but cohort 15, you will do a continuation for year 3. Okay? The financials. The financial rules, make sure you stick to the rules. And for the administrative costs, there is only 20% of the grant can be used for admin and indirect costs. And there's a admin indirect cost worksheet that's submitted into eGap. And you will also need to get a copy of that admin worksheet if you are the person at the local level uploading the information into eGap, because it will have to be uploaded into, not eGap, into Cognia. But if you're not the person uploading, then the central office person, when they come to that, they will upload that admin worksheet into Cognia. 25% for transportation costs, 5% max for professional development, and 3% max for external evaluator. Now, if you have 2 sites in your district, one site wrote a grant for $100,000, and another site wrote a grant for $150,000. The max can be different, but some districts, whoever the external evaluator is, they like to pay the same amount. But please know that you can go up to 3%. But just because school A received $150,000 and they're paying, they can pay the external evaluator $4,500. The other school only received $100,000. They can't pay that same amount. Okay? So keep that in mind. If your system, grant funds may not be used for regular school day purchases. If the system has more than one grant, keep these funds separated. There's a funding account for school A, funding account for school B. And so your McAleers will be for school A, and then expenditure report for school B. Make sure that you receive the monthly detailed expenditure report for the grant funds, and this should be at the local level. That way the program, the site director is keeping up with how much funds, the funds that are still in an account, so they won't request to purchase or spend money that isn't there. So you must keep a copy at the local school site. Expenditures. All purchases must be linked to the approved grant. So if you did not write in your grant that you would be doing, trying to think of something that, a specific thing that, robotics is not a good one to use, because if you did STEM, you can purchase robotic equipment because it'll fall under that. But I'm just use that. And if you can't link it to a goal and objective, you can't purchase the item. So it must be linked. So anything that you ask to purchase, you must be able to link it to a goal, a goal or an objective. I'll give you one. You want to purchase doors. You can't link that to a goal and objective. So that's not a purchase. If you go out and purchase this with grant funds, and that's a chargeback, and whatever you paid to purchase that, your system will have to put the money back into the 21st century account. So make sure that you can link it to a goal and objective. All purchases must be allowable, reasonable, and necessary. For instance, you only have 30 students attending your program. You send in a request to purchase 50 computers. No. You have the money, but it has to be reasonable. So ask yourself for all of these purchases, if it's allowable, first of all, if this is something that you can purchase, reasonable and necessary. Purchases of equipment should be included in your approved budget. Samples of approved and completed purchase orders, invoices, and receipts you will have to upload it into Cognia. Not all of your purchase orders, but any equipment purchases or major purchases need to be uploaded into Cognia for that section with the invoice. And anything that's a total purchase or a collective purchase with a cost of $5,000 or more, you need to send that request to me for approval. So it can either be one item or several items, but that one purchase order comes to a total of $5,000 or more. You need approval. You cannot buy food with grant funds unless the food is purchased for an activity. So then there must be a lesson plan attached to that purchase. And you can purchase food for parent event if prepared by students with a lesson plan. So if it's something that they did as part of a lesson, then you can serve that to the parents as well. But not just to purchase food to serve at a parenting event. You can't do that. Students cannot be charged for fees for 21st Century Program activities, for field trips or special activities. Fundraising by 21st Century Program students is not allowed. They can't raise funds. All program funds, including carryover funds, must be spent by the end of the third year. So cohort 14, you're coming to the end of your third year. All of your funds must be spent by closeout, 9/30. If not, the funds will go back to the state. Okay? So cohort 14, your funds must be spent by the end of the third year. Time and effort. Every person who's paid any amount using grant funds must keep a timesheet and have a PARD. So if it's a student worker, anybody, if they're paid anything, there must be a timesheet for them. If they're getting any funds for salaries, you must have a timesheet for them. And on the timesheet, list specifically what the employee did. And Camille went over this, and I shared this with you. You can't just put math. What did this teacher teach specifically? And if your school is using an electronic timekeeping system, you must also have the other PARD timesheet with the PARDs attached to it. Approval of timesheets. Each timesheet must have at least 2 signatures. Do not upload into Cognia timesheets as your evidence without 2 signatures. You want to upload your best. And when you're uploading timesheets into Cognia, I don't need every timesheet from everybody for every month, but I do need to see a sampling of everyone's timesheet use that quarter sampling and put it in there, but I don't want all the timesheets to come from Mrs. Smith, and there are 4 other people being paid. I want, no matter what that position and whatever they're doing, I want to see a timesheet from everybody. Whether it's the first quarter or the second quarter, when I go through all your samples, I should be able to lay them out and match a timesheet to a position. So make sure, and check what you're uploading. Again, don't upload things and 2 signatures are required. So make sure there are 2 signatures on what you are uploading. Upload your best, because now it's incognito. You know how I used to just come and go through the box? It was just on your site, and it was just between us. Now, anybody in Montgomery can go in and look at your documentation. So you want your best representation uploaded into Cognia. The staff, one of the things that it's on the checklist, and make sure you have timesheets and documentation for your program director and site directors, because they're being paid. And remember, everyone that's being paid out of 21st Century Funds must have a timesheet with the PARs uploaded. All high school and college employees under the age of 21 must operate under the direct supervision of an adult staff member. And the staff-student ratio form should be completed for each month and sent to me by the 15th of the following month. And one of the things that I've noticed under the ratio, some of you are having a hard time determining how to calculate a ratio. For instance, there were 40 students, you had 4 staff members, and you wrote your ratio 4 to 40. No. The ratio is the number of students per each adult. The best way to figure that out, take the number of students divided by the staff members, and then now there were 4 staff members, 40 students. The ratio is 1 to 10. Okay, and I've gotten several of those. So I wanted to make sure that I went over with you how to calculate and determine the ratio. And make sure that you're getting that in to me for by the 15th of a previous month. And use the same schedule that you use for Easy Report, because attendance has to be entered into Easy Reports by the 15th of a month for a previous month. So use that same time frame to get that to me.
With the staff to student ratio, if we have volunteers like AmeriCorps that are working, do we count them or only staff paid by our grant?
Yes. And but you keep up with your volunteers. That's even better, but we're looking at paid people, because we don't want to see more staff than students. So, but if you have other people volunteering, that's fine. Just looking at it for the paid.
If they're contracted services with us, do we count them?
That
They only come in to provide a service?
this is for the paid, where you're paying a salary to them. And time and effort. We've gone over that. Now we're down to inventory. Make sure that your inventory is up to date. Don't wait to the end of the year and then try to do your inventory. And so you're at any given point in time, if you've ordered equipment, it should be listed on your inventory. So if you ordered equipment in September and I'm checking your files in December, and you say, well, oh, we just hadn't put that on inventory, then you're not keeping up with your paperwork. You got some time, but it needs to be entered in, you should have a process, and you need to have your process written down. What's the time frame for doing the inventory? It comes in, we check it, within 20 days is entered on the inventory list. But you have to have a written process. So all grantees are required to complete an inventory form for all equipment, not consumable. I don't need to know the paper, the pencils, the number, the balls, not your consumable. But if it's equipment, electronic equipment, desk, tables, those things, your walkie-talkies, your kits, list those on the inventory. And if a grantee has more than one site, a form should be kept for each site. Do not put all purchases for all sites on one form. For instance, say school may have written a grant, School A. And in their grant, it asks how many sites will you serve. And it will be a Site A and Site B. So now Site A is keeping the equipment list, Site B is keeping an equipment list. But only one grant was written, but there are two sites. So you need a separate list, equipment list for those two sites. How many minutes do I have? 15? Woo, let's get going. Okay, also, you need you need all equipment must be properly labeled. I'm still not seeing equipment labeled. I got the labels right here, Dr. French, in the drawer. I just hadn't had a chance to put them on there. Label your equipment. Put the labels on there. A narrative outlining the organization's inventory process as well as their disposal process should be attached to the inventory. So now you got to have an inventory process and then your district disposal process. And so everybody should have a disposal process. Cohort 14, if you don't have it, you need it, because that's part of what will be required for closeout, the district's disposal process of equipment, because anything purchased that's on an inventory list, you're responsible for it until it's removed from that list. If you decide to keep that equipment at the end of a grant and you fall within a category where that equipment can stay at that school, it's still 21st century equipment until so you have to remove it from the inventory list. And extremely important about the disposal of equipment, you must include with your narrative a copy of the disposal process. If your equipment is lost or stolen, it is your responsibility to find the item. Otherwise, you are responsible for paying for the lost item, and you can't use grant funds to replace it. If a piece of equipment is stolen, you must file a police report. Under instructions, you review your grant regularly to ensure that you're implementing the requirements stated in the grant with fidelity, doing what's stated in the grant. Whatever you listed, that's what you have to do. The goals and objective included in your approved grant are substance of your instructional program. You need to review these. You need to keep using the compliance assistant checklist, review the requirements for instruction in your program. Provide daily, weekly, or monthly schedule. You have to have a schedule. Daily lesson plans are required. You must have lesson plans, and we have given you a sample of a lesson plan, but if you don't have to use that, but there are certain things that must be listed. Do not upload lesson plans into Cognia without a teacher name, grade level, or the date. So just don't, and it cannot be a pre-printed. In the pre-printed, I'm talking about, say for instance, if you had a book and there was a cool lesson there, and you just said, I'm just gonna make a copy of this, and that's what you upload. No, cannot be a pre-printed lesson plan. Good example for teachers, when your principal asks for lesson plans, you can't make a copy of what's in the textbook and give it to them, right? Same thing. You must have a lesson plan for the instruction. In the spring, you do your surveys, and your program must be aligned with the school day. It is to expand the school day, because in your grant you wrote about the performance of the students, and by participating in all your wonderful things, their achievements should improve, their behavior should improve, their conduct should improve, their character should improve during the regular school day. And that's why it's important to stay in contact with the regular school teacher about students that's attending your program and say, hey, Johnny is in our program. Are there any specific academic needs? Because you know that's one of the things that you have to upload into Cognia. You are to follow the school calendar. If the school is in session, your program is in session. You cannot say school starts August 15 and you decide we're not going to start until September 15. If the school is in session, program has to be in session. The only time you're given that leadway is at the first year of the grant, because you're not awarded your money until October. But from that point on, you have to follow the school calendar. Your EASA reports must be completed. There are 3 things that you have to do with your external evaluator: your annual evaluation plan, the mid-year report, and your final report. And all 3 of those reports you must email me a copy of those reports. So there are 3 reports that you have to do for the external evaluator or with the external evaluator, and the final report is something that they provide to you based on what you've provided to them, the required data. Then we'll do the risk assessment. That's an annual, and then the appliance checklist. And then you will be on the state schedule. When the state comes into your district for comprehensive monitoring, they will also monitor your documentation. The last couple of years, due to COVID, they didn't come, but I think they are now back to visiting sites. So they'll review your information off-site and then come into your site. Field trips. There's a pre-approved field trip list, and you need to, at the beginning of the year, start thinking about the field trips you would like to take during the summer. If there's something that's not on that field trip list, then it needs pre-approval. You must submit to me every field trip, a lesson plan for each field trip, whether it's on that list or not, and the field trip log. And then I will let you know this field trip is approved. There's a deadline when this must be submitted. Complete field, you send it to me, send the field trip log and lesson plan to me by August 15th for the first semester, January 15th, second semester, and May 15th for the summer. No out-of-state or overnight field trips are approved. All field trips, before you send those things to me, on the log, there's a signature for the superintendent. All field trip forms must have the superintendent's signature on them. So you need to start planning and getting those signatures so that you can get them in to me by the 15th with all the necessary signatures. Again, students cannot be charged for field trips. Every food and drinks cannot be purchased for field trips using 21st century funds. Every field trip must have proper bus documentation, including safety inspection, and this applies to whether it's your district school bus or a charter bus. You need that documentation. And bus drills must be completed for the regular school year and summer programs. Even if you're not using the bus for your program, you still have to do a bus drill. In case of emergency, the students need to know what to do. So you need to have a bus drill during the regular school year and a bus drill during the summer. Summer programs, you should start planning in the summer for your field trips, for the students, for the staff, and you need to also start thinking about your field trips. And these are some things to consider with your summer budget. Professional development. Every person that's paid with 21st century funds must keep documentation of the professional development, and you have a PD form, and they are required to do at least 10 hours of PD. And you need to have that listed on the form by the end of the year. So every year, it's 10 hours of PD. You're required to have a staff orientation twice a year, one at the beginning of school and one during the summer. And there are 4 pieces of things that should be included in your documentation: the invitation to the staff to announce the training, the orientation. You should have an agenda, sign-in sheet, and the minutes. If you don't have all of these pieces, then it's incomplete. So you need to make sure. And on that agenda, that you should include all these things that are listed. The orientation should include timekeeping procedures, lesson plan, sign-in, sign-out procedures, safety drills, medication administration, purchases, and the PD. And you want to add on there, it's lesson plans on there. So you need to have these words listed on that agenda, because I will be checking. And you need to provide your staff with a handbook and have documentation that they received the handbook, and you need to provide your staff with a copy of the safety plan and documentation that they received that. You're to schedule your advisory council meetings. You're to have 2 per year. But one of the things that's listed on the checklist, it said a list of advisory council meetings. So you need to go ahead and plan them at the beginning of the year. You may have to change the date, but if it asks for a list on that checklist, that's the first thing I'm looking for, a list. So as you go through the checklist, if it says a list of something, make sure you have that list of whatever it's asking for, because I'm looking for a list. Parental involvement, read your plan, see what you have listed in there that you're going to do for parental involvement. You can do more, but you can't do less. So whatever evidence that you're uploading, make sure it includes something that's listed in your plan that you're going to do for parental involvement. You still have to plan it, you still have to have it, even if only 1 or 2 parents show up. But you're still required to do it. Snacks, you have to keep snack count and menu count, a list of the menu of items served each day and the number of students served. That's one of the things you have to keep up with. And you have to have documentation of collaboration with the CMP, or if you're using a food bank, you need to have that. Safety. You have to do 2 safety plans per year. A safety plan for the beginning of school and a summer safety plan. We send you a template, you fill in the information, and for the summer, make whatever necessary changes and submit that in. And you have to make sure that your staff receive a copy of the safety plan, and you have to have documentation of them receiving that. You must have a medication administration plan, and you'll have to upload that. Keep up with your safety drills. There's a safety drill form, and it tells you when these drills must be completed. Also, I need to go back and mention, You're to do staff evaluation and a program evaluation. The staff evaluation must be done by the program director once per quarter. The program evaluation must be done by the program evaluator once per quarter. Then you want to make sure that the staff evaluation is done, and one must be done on everybody. And if you look at the form where you keep your documentation, it will tell you when you need to do that. All 21st century personnel will be trained in CPR or first aid. You want to make sure that they are all trained, and more than one person is trained, because if that one person that's trained is not at school, then somebody needs to be there at all times that's trained with CPR and first aid, and keep up with that documentation. Partnerships, keep a list of all your partners. If you keep make sure you have the contracts and agreements, and if you check your grant, if you have a joint collaboration that's as part of your grant and you receive those points, you need to be meeting with your collaborators at least once per year and have that documentation. Okay, I've covered everything. Now, you're welcome. Questions? Again, yes.
Is there a sheet for the count sheets for the C&D snacks? Is there a?
No, you just, and one of the things that I've seen a lot, they may have like a calendar page, and they put and the menu on there, and they just write the number. I'm just looking for the menu and looking for the count. Some, is however you do it is okay.
And then if CMP is being provided through the school, so we're not really doing anything with it, we still have to have all that documentation.
Yeah, because you have to provide the snack, and you work with your CMP people to.
CMP is providing the snack.
Yes, you don't purchase it, they provide it, but you may be the one disseminating. Okay? Remember to see me so we can take care of this risk assessment. We didn't do self-assessment this year. Shh, don't tell anybody. But we're going to do the risk assessment and have that documentation available. I will be getting with you to schedule, so I'm starting in November with file reviews. So don't wait. Just, you know what you're going to need to upload. Just go ahead and start. If you are the person if you're uploading at the local level, if it's being done at the district level, you just start creating your filing system and dropping those things in there. So all you would have to do, for instance, if it's Bruton City and Heidi is uploading at the central office, then they would just collect the artifacts at the local level. Okay, I know I'm gonna need this, organize it. And then when it's time, you just give it to Heidi. And then she doesn't have to stress out. And you don't have to stress out. You're gonna work on it all along, okay? Program directors, don't forget, Dr. Henson, will you come up and they will sign for and it's one, and I'll go over the list of names that I have, and you can just start coming up. So I have Tim or Michelle, Heidi, Lisa, Jody, Angela Phyllis, Dr. Lyle, Brittany, Reeves, Dr. McClaney, Gerald Pace, Andrew Sewell, Dr. Turner, Pugh, Evelyn Williams, LaFrida, and Marty, will you sign for LaFrida? Zella Ford, Sonia Moss, Glenda, Michael, Kim Turner, Tiffany Jones Williams, and Jody Smith. And just sign right here. Yes, sign to everywhere. Okay. And you know what? If it's someone that needs, for those signatures, I'm going to stand over here. And as you all know, I'm here to help. Any questions, it's better to ask the questions. me, this